Don't panic, I'm not stressed out. That was just for the thumbnail. Welcome back to the channel, Health No Filter. My name's Tristan Lowe and we're in summer, late spring, early summer 2025. And this is one of three short videos that I'm going to do on the subject matter, of stress. Okay, stress management. How do we deal with stress? Let's start, for those of you who aren't trained in anatomy and physiology of any description, just for layman's terms. Okay, layman's terms is for stress, our bodies are perceived inability to cope with perceived stress levels. Okay, now the key word is perceived. Okay, so it's our inability to handle or cope or manage perceived levels of stress. So we use that word because what's stressful for someone isn't stressful for someone else. So to give you an idea, poor sleep would eventually lead to stress levels. Overeating or even undereating would lead to stress levels. Driving all day in traffic, working on a building site, working in high sales, big price ticket items in sales would be stressful. Having marriage, separation, divorce, breakup is stressful. Alcohol consumption, pharmaceutical dependency, can lead to stress. There's 101 ways. So let's look at why we get stressed, okay, and what makes us think that we're stressed. I'm just going to read a short paragraph from one of my study books as the stress response and how it's described from a anatomical and physiological sense. Okay, the stress response. We respond to stress in a manner referred to as fight or flight. In essence, this is our alarm response dating back to when our bodies had to escape wild animals, unpredicted weather, run away from any sort of threat of any description. Okay, this makes our bodies mobilize resources for energy. We have to have immediate physical activity, as in we're running away, walking away, hiding, ducking, what have you. The heart pumps faster, it pushes more blood and glucose around the body, and it supplies glucose to the brain and the skeletal muscles. At the same time, our digestive, our urinary, and our reproductive systems, okay, are sort of put in the background. We don't need them for that moment of time, because the high priority would be to stay alive. If you're running away from an animal, a tiger or a lion, you're in the middle of the Serengeti, or in the middle of, could be anywhere, North America. You know, you'd never be running away from a dinosaur because we were hundreds, if not, millions of years apart at the time, man and dinosaurs. Now, the difference with those stresses compared to today is some of our stresses can be perceived as self-induced. If we take up a physically demanding sport, we take up a mentally demanding course or exams or doing our degree, it's stressful and we've brought that stress on ourselves. We have knowingly, for the most part, or unknowingly brought stress on ourselves. And we have to be able to adapt to those stresses. Now, as a personal trainer and sports massage therapist with quite a few years of experience behind me, what I've learned is for myself and for people that I've trained, that if you are physically fit, cardiovascular fit, strength, flexibility, mobility, you eat a reasonably healthy diet, sleep reasonably well and hydrate, your perceived ability to cope with stress is going to be better. It's not going to be worse. It's unlikely it's going to be worse. Now, whether you handle those stresses right then and there at the moment, I sometimes can get a bit stressed out if I'm driving on motorways fast, never breaking the speed limit, mind you. If I'm driving on motorways fast, I can get stressed out. So what I do, I slow down, make sure the car's nice and cool, especially in summer. It's always on a motorway. When you're on a straight line within reason, there's lots of lanes to change across, lots of traffic, but I don't get it in town centres or city centres or on country roads. It's normally on motorways. So what I always do, I just slow down a bit and I don't try and drive, as fast as I can, because you're going to get to wherever you're going eventually. And if you get things wrong, you're never going to get there. So that's how I handle that kind of stress. But other than that, I don't really get many stresses, not that I know of anyhow. And my ability to deal with them is good, if not, excellent. On the times it isn't, it's something when something's completely out of my control. And at that point, we have to say to ourselves, right, let someone else deal with it. All right, so let's get back to my my book here, my exam books. Okay, I'm going to read another passage here. Okay, the reaction of our bodies, is to control the involuntary nervous system. It's out of our control. It's out of our conscious control. The involuntary nervous system is something where our bodies and our brain take over without thought or without planning. Okay, it's spur of the moment. It's almost autonomous. Okay, the senses of the body detect a stressor which triggers off sympathetic stress response. The information is then sent to the hypothalamus in the brain, which in turn uses our body's endocrine system to continue stress response, illustrated in the diagrams in my book. Once stresses have been dealt with, our bodies go back to what we call a parasympathetic response. In other words, our nervous system has calmed down, it's relaxed, it's now gone from sympathetic to parasympathetic. And again, parasympathetic, think of a parachute that comes down. We start to relax again, heart rate comes down, we get the saliva back in our mouth, we can urinate again, we can digest food again over a space of time. So that's the point. That's when our bodies come down from a stressful environment. Now, let's look at hormone responses to stress. Let's start with the sympathetic. Okay, sympathetic responses to stress. Okay, eyes open, large pupils, rapid breathing, skin hairs become erect, muscle goes tense, rapid pulse, sweating, and increased metabolism. Now, let's look at parasympathetic nervous system when we're more rested. Okay, here we go. Parasympathetic responses to stress. Eyes closed, small pupils, slow breathing, slow pulse, dry skin, relaxed muscles, a slowing down of metabolism, and saliva comes back into our mouth. Now, I've actually had a short conversation with a client quite recently about stress and how to handle it. And again, there's a multitude of ways, and I would guide you as a healthcare professional not to rely on narcotics, pharmaceuticals, alcohol, smoking, vaping, pornographic material. Now, if you want to do any of those, that's up to you. It is within reason a free country. But I would say those things may get you by once, maybe even twice, but you won't be able to rely on those ad nauseum for the rest of your life, or hopefully not. I would say if you're stressed out, the first thing to do is to take a sheet of paper, take a book, sit down by yourself or with a friend. Hasn't got to be a professional in the healthcare industry, just someone else, someone with a fresh set of eyes and ears, and write down what you think causes stress in your life, and write down what you think you could do to minimize it, not to stop it dead in its tracks, because that can be quite hard to do, but also quite daunting where you don't think you could do that, but to something to reduce the amount of stress. Example, if you start work at 8 a.m. in the morning and you get to work at 3 minutes to 8, you've driven through town, driven across the city, you've got a bus or a train, I would suggest you get to work earlier. You get out of bed earlier and you get to work earlier, because you're going to be driving to work as quick as you can, or worried about the bus or train, and you're going to get to work just as you've got to clock in, or be sat at your desk or stood behind the counter, and you're going to be stressed out, and you may have your boss, work colleague, or a customer waiting for you, and which means that they think that you're late, even if you got to work 3 minutes before you're supposed to clock on. So get there earlier, yeah? If you spend too much time at work after working hours, and let's say your job finishes at 5 o'clock, and you're the guy or you're the girl that's still sat there, at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and you're not being paid noticeable bonuses or amounts of money on your salary to warrant or justify sitting behind after work. You're not the boss, you're an employee. That company will roll without you. What you should be doing is putting everything you can into your job in those 7, 8, 9 hours whilst you're there, instead of just dragging it out and working longer hours but achieving the same result. So I would say leave work on time. If you've got a paper to hand in, a deadline to do, something to get fixed on time for a client or a customer, different. But you shouldn't be living your life 5, 6 days a week working extra hours for no money. You may as well work for yourself or change career. Next thing I would say, if you live in a home that is cluttered up with oversized furniture, junk, stuff, whether it be stuff in the kitchen, stuff in the living room, the bedroom, the bathroom, other parts of the living room, and there's so much stuff in your house that you've accumulated, Okay, remember, that stuff never comes through your door or through your chimney by itself. You must actually go and get it. You've got to make a conscious effort to buy something from the shop or order something online and put it in your house. So whatever is in your house, you've put it there, or a member of your family have put it there. Declutter, get rid, sell it, eBay it, vint it, chuck it away, or even better, give it to a charity shop. Declutter your home, declutter your brain. That is you've got clarity then. You can move around your house easier. You can actually, you've got more space in your house to move around, and therefore that's a form of reducing your stress. Yep. Okay, so we've looked at work, we've looked at the home. Let's look at your car. Keep your car clean. Keep your car MOT'd and serviced on time. Keep it insured, but keep it clean and keep it working. On more than one occasion, I've come across people where we're not talking the boot or the back where you put your golf clubs or you put your shopping or you put your stuff that you take into the tip. I'm talking about people that I've come across and their car itself, the front seats, the back seats, are constantly loaded with rubbish or trash, or they're dirty. They don't vacuum them out. They don't wipe it down. I find that strange. Remember, if you've got something that you're transporting, that should go in the boot or on the roof of your car. But people who keep their cars dirty, they don't clean them. That's stressful because you're in a dirty car, so an unclean car inside, and therefore you're surrounded by clutter and dirt and a distraction, which can be stressful. So, go and get it cleaned. If you don't want to clean it yourself, pay someone £30-40. They'll wash it outside, vacuum it inside, empty it all out, empty out your boot. Just keep what you need in there. Emergency kits and your sports kit, something like that. Shopping bag, if you do your weekly shop once a week. You've now decluttered two parts of your life that you spend time in, your car and your home. Yes, you can't go into your place of business if you work in a shop and tell the boss or tell your colleagues that you're going to declutter the entire store, unless that's part of the plan or the company system. That there has to be negotiation and being reasonable then. But if it's your house or your car, you should do that. If you're the father at home and your house is cluttered up and your wife won't do it, take charge. You do it. Take 2 or 3 big black bin liners and empty rubbish out, like it or not. Or get the wife, get your girlfriend, get your kids to do it. But somebody should take charge to decrease your stress. Next thing will be your nutrition. If you consume highly processed foods more often than not, we're not talking once a week or even twice a week, we're talking once a day. If you buy packets of crisps and candies and chocolates and cakes and pasties, and you eat food on the run, fruit juices, sugary drinks, fizzy drinks, you are putting stress into your body, and that will 100% increase your stress levels. It can't decrease it. You may feel sedated or placated or happy for those 5 seconds after eating, crisps and cakes and buns and chips and pies and fizzy drinks. But in the long run, you're going to do nothing but damage your body. You're going to make your body, from a nutrition point of view, devoid of nutrition, and therefore your perceived inability to handle stress will increase without question. All right. Look at exercise. We're only going over brief ideas now. Let's look at exercise. I would suggest you exercise at least 3 times a week. You do 2 to 3 strength training sessions a week and a cardiovascular session, running, swimming, walking, cycling, rowing, or mix them up together. You can decrease these stress hormones in the body with exercise. Okay, and there is so much evidence to prove that actually does work. Okay, it's not a new idea. It's anatomic, anatomy and physiology. It's biology. It's how our bodies work. Yeah, you show me someone who does a 20, 30, 50, 60-minute workout, how they feel after compared to when they started, especially once you've gone home and had your shower, had your breakfast or had your lunch. You are de-stressed, you're calmer. Your parasympathetic nervous system is going to start taking over the sympathetic nervous system, which is switched on when you get ready to exercise or when you're actually exercising during the session. Finally, a quick one. Who you surround yourself with. That will be in the home, at work, out on the road, in relationships. Be mindful, take stock. Think it through first, and if you have to write it down, just be careful how you write it down, and be careful where you leave your pieces of paper or your iPhone in the notes section. But what I would suggest, okay, is to not necessarily, go through this, massive cull of friends, family, and work colleagues, because you may be doing that just for something to do, to try and prove a point, and find out you've got no friends and family and significant others to actually to go back to. What I would say is reduce the amount of time you spend around people, and not just negative people, because negative is a matter of opinion. Okay, if someone's always complaining, okay, they may seem like a negative person. If someone's always actually pointing the finger at someone else, you know, the phrase is, if you point the finger at someone, remember, there's three fingers pointing back at you. You know, they may not be the first people you think of to minimize your time around them, or in some cases, in drastic measures, get rid of them. That's not always the case. You know, you may have someone that you perceive to be a positive person, but actually they could equally be causing you stress. You may think of someone, could be a next door neighbor, a work colleague, a family member, someone you're in a relationship with. Actually, the thing to do is to, at first, not necessarily spend less time with them, but the time you spend with them, try to make it quality. Yeah. If after that's not going to work for you, then spend less time with them. And finally, you know, take out your lightsaber and get rid. Okay. Spend less time around them, and then eventually don't spend any time with them. And that will eventually reduce your stress. Not overnight. It could take days, weeks, months, even years. But you'll be on your way to decreasing your stress levels. We do need some stress in the body. We need it. Our fight or flight stress responses, the body's hormones, everything works together. You know, pituitary gland, the adrenal glands, the adrenal cortex, the heart, the blood, the lungs, the brain, the nervous system. They all work. You know, they all work in symbiosis together to handle stress. All right. Now, and finally, this one may come as a surprise. We've talked about exercise, nutrition, sleep, friends, family, work colleagues, decluttering. But sex is a very, very good stress reliever. Now, it's a broad subject, and it's not one that I'm an expert in. However, I have some form of expertise in it because, you know, I'm a 54-year-old man. Physical sexual intimacy is a very, very good form of stress relief. You know, last time you were intimate with your wife or your girlfriend, or ladies, the last time you were intimate with your boyfriend or your husband or your significant other, you know, you're pretty de-stressed after. Again, and there is physical and biological reasons why. It's quite a broad subject. I may touch on that another time. However, I'm not actually trained, you know, officially in that subject. But like a lot of my viewers or listeners, I've got some experience in it. And I can tell you, it's a very, very good stress relief. Anyone who tries to convince you that physical intimacy or sexual intercourse is a bad thing, and not just for when we're trying to reproduce, but actually for stimulation, as a pleasure. Anyone who tries to convince you that it's a bad thing, unless you're trying to have a child and start a family, which is a great thing to do, get rid of them. Yeah, okay, that person either has got little to no experience or simply doesn't like it. So minimize your time around them. Find someone who does like it. Yeah, but don't quote me on that. That's for you to work on yourself. There you go. That's the first of 3 subjects I'm going to do on stress. Section number 2, section number 3, we're going to go into more detail about how the body works with it. But in the meantime, my name's Tristan Lowe. The channel is Health No Filter. Better living through good exercise and de-stressing. You can find me on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, crikey, and one day even Netflix. We're fast approaching 100 episodes. Yep. Comment, like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.